Today I've got a Canon R7 for review, complete with its 18-150 kit lens. Now I won't go over all the specs in this video because there are plenty online if you want all the tech specs and whatnot, but I will mention the specs that I think are relevant to this particular video. The camera weighs in at 612 grams and is 134 millimeters wide by 90 millimeters high and 91.7 millimeters deep. The kit lens weighs in at 310 grams and it is 84.5 millimeters long by 69 millimeters in diameter. And when I extend it out, 84 millimeters long to 126. And together this combo weighs 922 grams, which is a lot lighter than the Nikon Z6 and the 24-70 combo that we own, which weighs in at 1175 grams. So a couple of hundred grams lighter. It has a fairly deep grip on it, similar to the Nikon. I think it's probably a little bit deeper than the Nikon grip, which is comfortable in the hand. And one thing I find with this is that the kit lens looks a little small on the lens mount. As you can see, the lens mount itself is probably about 10 mil wider than the lens body itself. And from what I have seen on another YouTube video, I believe that this may be adapted from an EFS lens to be mounted onto the RF mount. And also something that I wish other manufacturers would implement is when you turn the camera off, the shutter comes over the sensor, which is really handy when you're changing lenses out in the field in dusty, dirty, environments, or environments where there's a bit of moisture floating around. It just helps to protect that sensor. So when you turn it on, the sensor, the shutter mechanism opens up, and when you turn it off, shutter comes down, which is really handy. I wish all camera manufacturers would implement that system on their cameras. Now this camera has a 32.5 megapixel APS-C size sensor inside. So that means with Canon it's a 1.6 times crop. So any lens you put on it, you multiply that by the focal length by 1.6 to give you your full frame equivalent. Now, as of September 2022, they only have two lenses for this APS-C system at the moment, which is the 18-150 lens that is on this now, and the 18-45 mm. The 18-150 has f-stop of 3.5 to 6.3 at the long end, and the 18-45 is a 4.5 to 6.3 at the long end. But I'm sure in the future they will add more APS-C size lenses for the system. So this little camera also has image stabilization in it with up to 8 stops of stabilization with certain lenses. So as a Nikon user, I'm not familiar with all the Canon lenses, the RF lenses, and what lenses you need for 8 stops of stabilization on this, but I'm sure there's plenty of information online for all that sort of information on what lenses you need. But my limited experience using this camera, all the buttons and dials seem to be laid out fairly well. The only two little minor exceptions that I am not that happy with on this, and that is the on-off switch, which is positioned around the back where your thumb rests. It's it's okay to turn on when you're holding the camera with two hands, but when you've got one hand and you're trying to, if you're holding the camera like this, and then you try to use your thumb, it is possible, but it's not easy. You feel like you're going to lose your grip on it to try and turn it on and off. Now the other thing is this control wheel and the joystick on the back. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it needs to have a control wheel around here and a joystick up here where your thumb would rest. You can easily move the focus points around and whatnot, but having a joystick and a control wheel in one little unit, I think, is a little too confusing. If the joystick was raised up a little bit, because as you can see, it's quite flush with the control ring. If it stuck out a little bit further, it might be okay, because you can still use the control ring there and you can feel where that joystick is. But as it stands, yeah, those are probably the two biggest things I don't like about this Canon model. The front dial is reasonably easy to use up here. From a Nikon point of view, we're used to it round the front here and not up there, but that's not too much of an issue. But in saying that, it's just muscle memory. Once you used it for a few months, you get used to where all the dials and buttons and how to turn it on and off and so forth, you know. So that's just going to take time, get used to it. Flip screen is one really good addition to the camera, like Canon do with a few of their cameras. They should implement, I mean, I know a lot of photographers, just photographers only, would rather have a tilt up screen, but for when you're composing vertical shots down low, you can't see a tilt screen as easy as you can with this. You can look down, get it down low, and look straight down on the screen. It just makes it much easier to compose a photo when you've got a flip out screen down low, especially for vertical shots. And of course for YouTubers who want to film themselves, you can see the screen, brilliant. I like them. I think they're a great addition. No, I don't think it takes anything away from when you're taking photos. I think it's just as easy to use as a flip up screen. You just need to flip it out to the side and you can compose your image, easy peasy. Now all the port doors have little plastic or rubbery type door on them. I think they could be better implemented. They are a little bit loose and floppy, a bit like some of the older Sony cameras where you flip the little port door out and it's just dangling away. This is not, it doesn't seem to stay out of the way very well. It's pull it out and it sort of sits back in front of the doors, but it's got a microphone door which you can flip out a little bit and back in. They're rubbery. The remote, one for your remote, which I think is a bit big for one small little remote port. That whole panel there is for one little remote port right there. And you have a headphone jack, which that's pretty easy, but that door for the remote is just way too big. It doesn't need to be that big. But you have a a micro USB and a USB-C port there. So they all work very well. And you've got 2 memory cards behind the card door for SD cards. And they're both UHS 2. Now, one thing I like about Canon cameras is their menu system. Now, so it's all touch screen, except for when you get your hand in front of the viewfinder. So you can go through different portions of the menu, easy enough, and it's very intuitive, really. You got your photo modes here, AF menu there, your playback for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi settings in there. You've got your wrench there to access different functions, like shutter. You know, shutter down when you turn the camera off. You can switch that on and off, sensor cleaning, all that sort of stuff. And you can also go into your menu to record video or photos to whatever card you want. Same with record and play, things like that. You got your My Menu tab with a star there, so you can add different functions. So this has got, you know, these functions on here for image quality, formatting card, sensor cleaning, eye detect and that sort of stuff, time lapse and so forth. You can add more pages to it, but it works really well. And same with when you want to touch to focus, it works pretty quick and pretty accurately. But yeah, I think the Canon menu system is one of the best, and also their touchscreen implementation is one of the very best as well. I wish all manufacturers would have touchscreen interface on the menu, especially, not just for focusing. But enough of me blabbering on about this camera. What I'm going to do now is to show you some video clips and some still images from the camera. The video clips will be in 4K 25 frames per second, and all the images will be full size JPEGs, very lightly edited to my taste anyway, but pretty much straight out of crop to 16:9, and so, like I say, just a little bit of very light editing in it. So yeah, we'll play them now and see what you think. We shall take some photos and some video and see what it's like. Let's have a look at this little duck here. Now, one thing that is a bit strange with this is, I don't know whether I like it or not, is the joystick is in the middle of this little control ring. Instead of just having a joystick here only, Canon have opted to put a little control ring there as well. I don't know how I feel about that yet. Like I say, I've only just, there's the joystick and there's the control ring. So you can move the focus points over with the joystick, and as yet I'm not sure what I control with that, but as I use a little bit more, I shall find out. At the moment, that little control ring is set to adjust the exposure on it. So darken the exposure or brighten the exposure on the screen. See how dark it's gone then? Bring it up to the correct exposure. I'm sure you'll probably be able to program it to other functions, maybe ISO or aperture or something like that, I'm not sure. So let's carry on and we'll see what else we can photograph.
Sharp motherfucker, I can't even get on.
So I'm just going to do a little video clip handheld and see how steady this is. As you see, I've got no tripod, just hand holding, and zoom right in to 150 millimeters. Some people up there, there's some stand there, I'm not sure what it's all about, but pan across. I've just borrowed this off a friend and I haven't changed any of the settings, the video settings or anything like that, nor the photo quality options or anything like that. It's just as I got it from him. So I'll go into the menu and have a look and see what video quality is like, where it's set at, and we'll do a few more tests. So yeah, the video option is set at 4K 25, so it's the same as what we're shooting on the Sony. So I'll just do a little video clip of this magnolia tree up here. Yep. See what the dual pixel autofocus is like. Change that focus point to the middle. And we'll see what that's like. I might actually take a couple of photos as well with it. Hopefully they look good. One thing I don't like about this is where the on-off switch is placed. It's on your thumb. So if you're coming from a Nikon or a Sony, for instance, you've normally got it at the front there. You want to just turn it on. This way you've got to, it's too hard to switch it on while you're holding onto the camera. You basically got to steady it, switch it on.
Doesn't seem so natural.
Yeah, it doesn't seem natural. No, you're right. It doesn't. Like, you're walking along and you want to turn it on, you've got to move your thumb because you're going to have to really grip it like that to actually turn it on. It's not natural. No, it's not. Where if you've got your thumb there and your trigger finger is ready to turn it on and then hit the shutter button, it's just so much more natural. But anyway.
The can't all be perfect.
No, we can't. There's no perfect camera.
No perfect operator either.
There's no perfect operator, no. Nobody's perfect. And no perfect camera. Come on. So as you can see by some of these images on screen, I'm just going through them on the little laptop here in front of me, they've come out pretty well. They're nice and sharp, good resolution. When you zoom into 100%, they look pretty good. And the video quality appears to be very good as well. I'm sure with a nice prime lens on it, you'll get even sharper results. I mean, like, this is only just a kit lens. As for the quality of this lens at around about $1,000 New Zealand, I think it's okay. I wouldn't say that it's brilliant, but certainly like an f1.8 50mm or 85mm f1.8 are going to give you way sharper results, better image resolution from the sensor. But I think it's a good all-round walk-around lens for the average user. But certainly those who want to get a bit more creative and a bit more technical with their photos, getting a prime lens is going to be a much better option. Now, pros and cons of this camera. Pros, it's a very good first crop sensor for the RF mount. I find the 32.5 megapixels, it's got a good resolution sensor in it, as opposed to the R10, which has got 24 megapixels. So you are getting a little bit more resolution out of the same size sensor as opposed to the R10. And it feels like it's made out of pretty good quality plastics. So it feels good in the hand. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like a real budget option. It feels like a quite a reasonably premium type camera. All the buttons and dials work very well. They don't feel like they're really loose and sloppy and made of cheap plastic. So that's one good thing. It does feel high quality. The flip out screen, that's another big benefit especially for video users, YouTubers, and for some photographers. Not all photographers like the flip out screen, but yeah. It has good 4K video options. It has quite a few different settings in there for frame rates and video qualities of 4K. 2 memory card slots, which is always good, and they're both UHS 2. And one good thing that Canon does here in New Zealand, I'm not sure what they do over in America or other parts of the world, but they have a 5-year warranty with this camera. Now that's pretty much unheard of. Most camera brands either have 1 or 2 years if you're lucky, but 5 years, they obviously feel like it's going to last at least 5 years with regular use. So that's already pretty good. So yeah. The image quality, I find image quality on this kit lens is pretty good. Like I say, with a prime lens, a really good quality prime lens, you're going to get even better image quality. So you're going to have really excellent image quality from a good quality prime lens. So. Cons of this camera. I think the price of it is maybe a tad on the high side, but in saying that, it's still pretty good value in terms of other crop sensor cameras that are coming out now. With the way the world is at the moment in 2022, with shortages of this and that, and the way the camera market is going, hey, it is what it is. At $3,500 New Zealand with the kit lens on it, there are cheaper options, but there are also dearer options, like the Fuji X-H2S. But that's a video-centric camera with less megapixels, but also quite a bit more expensive than this option. So if you want a probably middle-of-the-road option in APS-C or crop sensor cameras, this is probably a good option. The Canon R10 is a cheaper option with the 18 to 45 lens. It comes in at just under the $2,000 mark here in New Zealand. There are cheaper full frame cameras on the market. Canon's own RP, which is a full frame camera with a 24 to 105 lens here, retails here in New Zealand for $2,500. So you can get a 26 megapixel full frame camera with a 24 to 105 lens for less money than this crop sensor camera. And then you've got around about $1,000 to buy maybe one or two of Canon's lower priced prime lenses that would go quite well with it. Or you could get like a Nikon Z5 with a 24 to 50 lens for just a little bit over $3,000 New Zealand. So there's two full frame options that are cheaper than this APS-C camera. So it really does depend on what you want the camera for, whether you want full frame or APS-C, because like say with full frame you're going to get bigger, heavier, more expensive lenses. Other cons are, like I say, that on-off switch at the back. I think that's something that Canon could probably move to the front. It feels more natural having it at the front. You're holding on to the camera with your three of those fingers, and your index finger there. You can use for the shutter button anyway. You're going to move that round, and you can put a switch on the front there. And that joystick control ring at the back, personally, that's another con for me. I'm not really over enthused about that. I'd rather have a separate control ring, say down here, and a joystick up here. But that's just me. As in terms of value for money, I think overall, in terms of the market, it's good value for money. With a prime lens on it, at a slightly cheaper price, I think it would be excellent. The kit lens, like I say, it's a good all-round lens, but it's nothing fantastic. There are better options in terms of zoom lenses, but they are more likely full frame and like larger and heavier. Now, final thoughts. Would I recommend this camera? If you're into the Canon camera system, then yes. If you've got a full frame camera and you want something for wildlife, birding, even sports photography, with the right lens on this, it could be a good little camera. With Canon filling out their RF mount, there will be more options available in the near future for this camera and also the full frame cameras. So you're going to have a lot more choices in the near future with in terms of lenses. Like I say, if you're in the Canon ecosystem, then yeah, if you want a second camera, it makes perfect sense to get something like this. Because like I say, you get a bit more reach out of the camera. You're smaller and lighter than most of the full frame cameras. So yeah, it's like I say, it's a very good option. Now, putting the Canon camera aside, coming up in future videos, I'll be testing some Sony lenses and cameras for a change. I'm going to have two different camera bodies, a ZV-E10 and a A7C to test out. And we'll be having some camera lenses to go in that system that we'll be testing out as well. For all those of you who have subscribed that are into the Nikon system, that like the Nikon reviews, there will be still some of those reviews, as we still own two Nikon cameras, but we are switching over to the Sony system. And I'll go into more depth about that in a future video as to why we're changing systems, their main system to Sony. But for now, I hope you'll stick with us as we switch over to Sony with the odd Nikon review. So yeah, I hope you liked that video. Please like and subscribe if you do like the video. And hit that bell notification so that you get notified of any future videos when I post them. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one. So just before I go, I want to thank Mark for lending me the Canon camera. So cheers, Mark.